All right, I'm going to check and make sure that we are up and running on the other platforms. Looks like we're good on YouTube.
Hmm.
Looks like we're good on Facebook. It doesn't look like I'm moving very much, but you look like you're doing all right over there.
Gucci.
All right, welcome to Mindful Mondays. This is our second episode. I guess we can call it an episode. But we're going to be coming to you all live every Monday with pretty much just updates on what it is that we're currently doing to incrementally improve our quality of life, the things that we're working on as it pertains to the other topics and things that we offer up on a weekly basis on the Balance Period podcast and all of the other content that we post across all of our social media platforms. That's at the Balance Period and also at the Balance Period podcast. You can find us on pretty much anywhere that you are. So, well, I want to first and foremost welcome Nick back to the show. Nick, how you
Hola.
feeling today?
Better than I was last week, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about what you experienced and some of the things that you did, and kind of how your recovery has been. I know I mentioned it on this week's episode of the podcast, which, if you haven't listened to it yet, episode 148 dropped yesterday at 11:11, now available on all listening platforms. It is talking about how you can execute on consistently getting high quality sleep, and that's by making the commitment to yourself to focus on investing your energy on a consistent basis into improving your evening routine and making sure that you're putting your body and mind in the best position to get high quality sleep. Episode, I offer up 3 ways that you can execute on doing so throughout 2022 and beyond. So definitely check that out. Remember, all listening platforms you can find us at, well, you don't have to put the at in front of it, but Balance Period Podcast will bring you to wherever we are. Remember, look for the lions. You'll see the lions and you'll know that it is us. So, all right, Nick, let's start with a mindful moment here, right? This is Mindful Mondays. We're starting the week off mindfully. So let's start with a brief breathing exercise that can help us reconnect to the here and now.
Dope. So we're gonna do something extremely basic. Like this is one I recommend you teach to children because this is something that, as far as mentally, it is gives us like a shock to the body, but in the direction of calming us down. If that makes sense. All we're gonna do is take 5 of the deepest breaths that we possibly can. The one thing that I want you to be mindful of when you take these breaths is to make sure that you're really breathing into your diaphragm. So when you inhale, I want you to expand your belly, but it's not so much that you're breathing into your belly, more so you're breathing into the bottom part of your lungs. A lot of us are chest breathers. And so we spend a lot of time breathing, using all the muscles up here, which can wear us out, which can induce anxiety, instead of breathing into our diaphragm, which then activates our rest and digest system, our parasympathetic nervous system. And so today we're just going to take 5 deep breaths. I'm going to count us down: three, two, one. Really breathe in deep, feel your lungs expand almost like a inside body stretch. All right. So sit up nice and keep a straight spine when we breathe. Three, two, one. Now just take 5 deep breaths at your own pace. Like I said, allow your body to really blow up like a balloon. Maybe even hold it for a second at the peak of your inhale. Now, these last couple ones in there, and really feel your body begin to settle where you are. So, well, I appreciate you all for taking the time today to have this mindful moment with me. And don't forget, this is perfect for those times when you get a sudden shock of being overwhelmed, or something that is not, that doesn't normally go along with your daily routine, might jump into your routine. You're like, oh my goodness, what do I do now? Take those 5 deep breaths, recenter yourself. You're in complete control.
Dope. Yeah, and I know we oftentimes link the value of breathing to like reducing stress and anxiety or coping with it in the moment so that we're able to respond in ways that are aligned with our values, regardless of what's happening outside of our control. But going through the process of setting those mindful moment reminders in your phone, right? Those gentle vibrations that prompt you to pause and breathe, like we can do this in a way that is not like waiting for the stress to come on, breathing, right? We do this as a way to be preemptive, right? To say, or proactive, I should say, to proactive for when stress does come, we're prepared because we've already taken time throughout our lives prior to that stress being present to breathe and to focus in on the ability that we have to control our breathing and ultimately manage our internal environment so that we can remain grounded and we can keep our actions aligned with what we value and what it is we actually want to see in our moment to moment lives. All right. So know that you don't just have to wait until you're stressed to focus on your breath. Set those mindful moment reminders and begin to practice, right? Strengthen that mindfulness muscle through tuning in to how you feel and focusing in on your breathing throughout your day. All
Yeah.
right.
And then, so as you do it, just remember that your breath is everything. Because some people might say, well, why should I breathe? Why should I do this? Like, what's the biggest benefit? Your breath is everything. When you get happy, what changes? Your breathing. When you're sad, what changes? Your breathing. When you're overthinking, what changes? Your breathing. So if you can set it up for yourself to be at a place where you set the intention for yourself to be, where you're in control, where you're mindful of your breathing, it's going to be really hard to get you out of that space with anything else that takes place. So just something to be mindful of. If you ever need a why, it's because everything that you do, and the one thing that you have absolute control over right now, is your breathing.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. There's so much outside of our control. We might as well focus our energy on what we can. So
Right.
definitely take that into consideration as you think about, right, maintaining this mindful perspective, not only today, but as we travel along the remainder of this week. Remember, mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. So you're intentionally being where you are and you're not judging it, you're just observing it in a way that allows you to recognize the full worth of what you're experiencing. Okay. All right. So, Nick, let's start to talk a little bit about ourselves. This is the end of the month, right? So, this is literally the last day of the month. Tomorrow is February. So, let's talk a little bit
Already.
about the experience that we have had thus far in 2022 and some of the things that we had been working on throughout this month of January.
Man, so my big thing has been recently, I was sharing the stream real quick. Had to make sure we get out there some more. Man, recovering from COVID. That's been like the biggest thing for me. So I came down with it I would say like around Thursday. I started feeling sick. Holly got super, super sick. Her boss got it when those two had Chili's, and then Holly had
People
it.
still eat at Chili's?
Yeah, Chili's, Texas Roadhouse in the Fishers area. Yeah, they still eat that. They still eat up there out of here. I don't know if they're gonna eat there now after that takes place, but yeah, who knows? But yeah, so they both got it, and she was just struggling, and I knew I was gonna get it. That's the first part is I accepted the fact that I'm probably gonna have this. It wasn't no more of that. Oh, I'm not worried about it, this and that. The fact that it was in my home, I was like, I'm probably gonna get this, and I knew I was going to get it not only because of that, but because with her being so sick, I didn't sleep. I was going to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, waking up at 6 to take Stark out and still making sure that she's good. I'm taking her temperature throughout the night because she's burning up. I have to help her walk. And it was just a complete adjustment from everything that I normally do. And so it was inevitable for me to get sick. And so I just want to make sure that as I did transition into that, that I was just completely mindful. And that's where my journey started. So instead of it being like, oh my gosh, I have COVID, it was like, oh my goodness, I got COVID right now. So this is really interesting to experience what this is. And I tell you, I got so in tune with my body during that time because I am never in my life have I felt my bones hurt. Like it felt like my bones were decaying from the inside. Like that, if it hurt to be alive, if that makes sense. And as I sat there with it, I was like, well, this is when you get to experiment. So I got to use my breathing. I got to use different stretches. And so I did everything that I knew to just get through that time. And it all worked. It was an amazing time with myself going through something and just being able to be aware of it. But it was just really interesting just to see the different mental spaces I would go into. Like in the aspect of like when you look at how it's portrayed in the media and how a lot of people talk about how they deal with it, I can 100% understand how someone can be completely engulfed in fear and thinking like, oh, I'm about to die. Oh, this is the worst thing that happened to me. Oh, this, oh, that. And that can just add on to the stress of having it in and of itself. And so it was interesting to sit there and think about those things while going through it within the moment. And it's just seeing how the things that we do, like setting a mindful moment reminder, taking the time to prioritize self care, making sure that you meditate. When you make those things an actual component of your life, when these things do happen that are unexpected, it's not as detrimental as you would think.
Right. Yeah, so what were some of the things that I know you mentioned breathing, you mentioned stretching. What did you like take any medicine? Like how did you go about managing some of the other symptoms that you were experiencing?
It was just simple stuff. So like Tylenol PM. I did some NyQuil before bed. I used to do like Mucinex and stuff, but I didn't really do that this time. I'm really just like not just now being dealing with congestion. It more so it's just like how my body felt. It was like if I could have taken an icy hot bath, I'd have done that. I feel like that would have just helped immensely, or Epsom
Icy
salt
hot
bath.
bath.
There you go. Yeah, Epsom salt bath. And
That makes more sense. I was like, oh man, because like
hey,
when
look,
icy hot
bro.
hits places that it's not supposed to be, it don't feel too good.
Right. When your spine feels like, you know how you see cartoons when they get real dry and just crumbles? That's what my spine felt like. It felt like if I moved wrong, my whole body was gonna crumble down and I was
Oh
gonna be done
Lord.
for. So I was anything that could have made any type of relief. Like I wanted that so badly. But other than that, yeah, it was just a lot of, and it was mostly just being mindful. Like a lot
Mm,
of what I dealt with was just thoughts in my head, being like, "Oh, is it hard to breathe right now? Lungs close in a split second." And I was like, why would I think that? I have no reason to think that right now. My breathing is
right.
impeccable. I'm just dealing with something. And so it was a lot of outside influences that would just come in and they would just be those subconscious thoughts. And what that let me know was like, oh my goodness, I need to pay a lot more attention to what I'm consuming. Because if subconsciously something within my body does something differently, and my first thought is something of less than, then that's an issue that I have with myself. And so now that I'm aware of that, I can then start to become more aware of what I'm consuming, change those things. So then next time anything like that ever comes up from any perspective, I now have a different response to it rather than the reaction that I had originally.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. The idea of expanding your awareness of the quality of what it is that you consume, right? Because that's something that we'll talk more about entering February as we dive deeper into midday routines. Because to start the year, we were focusing on evening routines, but as it pertains to your midday, that's something that's so important when you think about how much you spend your time and what you spend your energy doing, like thinking about what you consume even making small adjustments to your consumption can completely change the experience that you're having. So I'm glad that, that's something that you've been able to gather from the experience that you had over the last, couple weeks here of recovering from not feeling your best.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but things are going better now. She's feeling a whole lot better. I've been doing a lot better. And so looking forward to getting back into it. It was a good prompt to finally to stop BSing and make the adjustment of like the lifestyle changes for eating wise and exercise. So that was a good kick in the butt to get that started. So as I begin keep getting better, then I'll start to incorporate those things and we'll see the kind of experience I have after that.
Yeah, and kind of sidebar, we were talking about that probably a couple weeks ago. So prior to you, getting sick, about how, there were things in your life that you knew if you made adjustments to, you could change your experience, but you
Mhm.
just didn't feel like making the changes at the time. I feel like it's something that each and every one of us experiences, right? Like I know there's
Oh,
things
yeah.
now that I look at and I'm like, if I did this a little bit different, so, but you know what? Like I'm comfortable in what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna chill here. Talk a little bit about like your experience with that and how you said like now after experiencing what you just did, it's kind of like a prompting you to say, okay, now is probably a good time to
Mhm.
actually do what I know is beneficial. So talk about that.
So to give a little context, the way that I view life, the experience of what we're doing as a whole is it's an experience. And it's an experience like kind of like a choose your own adventure game, which you get to create whatever experience you want for yourself. And when I began that, it gave me the freedom to not look at life as something that I had to do things a certain way. And so as that began to take place, it was more like, okay, so what do I why do I want to do this? And so I get to create my own experience. And lost my train of thought for a split second. What was you asking me
Yeah,
again?
it happens. No, I was
It
just,
does.
wanting to learn more about that process of understanding that there's adjustments that you can
Oh,
make
okay,
to
gotcha.
change your quality of life and actually doing it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and as I began to do that, I realized like, hey, I don't have to do things a certain way. And when I was okay with that, that was the first time that I really felt like I can accept exactly where I was. And that was a big catalyst change for me. It was accepting myself for where I was And when I began to do that, I realized how much of my life was based off what I thought I was supposed to do, or how much it weighed on what other people could think, like, oh, you should be doing this with your life. It was like, man, I'm not even living the life I want to live. And so it does take time to become aware of that and then to get out of that aspect, because you find yourself all the time having anxiety for, say, you don't do something for a whole day. You'll have anxiety feeling like I didn't get anything done. Oh my gosh, why didn't I do anything? When in reality, you haven't rested in 6 weeks. And so it was just this go, go, go mentality. And once I realized that I had the power to not have to do anything, I had then made it easier for me to be like, yeah, I see the areas in my life where if I made a change to my sleep pattern, if I changed what time I went to sleep, I could change the time I wake up and change the experience I have when I wake up, thus changing the quality of my life as a whole. That's really cool to look at. And normally, you would say, okay, that'd be the best thing for me. But I stopped. I changed how I looked at stuff. It's not better or best. It's just what experience do I want to have right now? I realized the way that I thought about life as a whole was just limiting. It was just purely off labels that have been told to me my whole life. So now instead, I just have the acceptance to this is where I'm at right now. I know that if I want to change my life, I can. It's me for the reason my life is where it's at right now. And if I do want to change it, I could do A, B, and C, and it would change my complete outlook of life. Because right now I'm doing these certain things and my life goes this way. And I know if I practice this routine, this is how my life will go. And so instead, I now have the ability to say, hey, if I change these things, this will change my experience. And so it makes it a little bit easier to change it when I got into that area of accepting myself for where I was and being confident in how I choose to live my journey.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely a point to be made there when you're discussing this concept of I'm just here for the experience, so there's nothing that I really have to do. I think for individuals that do have goals and that do, aspire for more in their life, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be, right? It can be limiting if you are in a position where you're not actively aligning how you're spending your time with what it is you want to accomplish. Because if you're spending your time doing one thing, saying, that you want to do something else, but what you're doing isn't aligned with that, then naturally you're going to experience that anxiety associated with like, oh, I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing the right things, quote unquote. So I know in my experience, I have goals, right? I have things that I want to do in my life, short term or long term. I have values that I look to, want to communicate through my actions. And because I have those in place, when I think about how I manage my energy and how I spend my time, if there is something that I notice that, hey, if I make this adjustment to this, then I can be in more of alignment with what I feel like my purpose is and with what I do want to accomplish. Like that's how you eliminate that resistance in your life, right? You can create an environment where you can allow the abundance that's there for you to manifest itself in your life because you're not working against yourself by doing things that no longer serve a useful purpose as it pertains to what it is you want to accomplish and that person that you really want to be. So there are multiple ways of approaching it, but you just have to understand who you are, what it is that you want, and from that, then base your decisions on whether you're going to make adjustments to your lifestyle or if you're just going to experience what it is you're experiencing and just, be with that and let that be, what is enough for you in the moment. Whatever, you determine works best for you is perfect because you're the one that decided that that's what works best for you. But just know that there's flexibility in that process, right? But awareness at the end of the day is key. Self-awareness at the end of the day is key. Because if you are unaware of yourself and what you need, then there's no way that you'll be able to effectively give it to yourself so that you can align your lifestyle with your highest good and with what will actually help you experience the happiness and the healthiness and the wholeheartedness, excuse me, that's available, for you to experience while you're here. So,
Yeah. And I would challenge you to choose who you are. Like even as you go through this understanding, realize that you get to make the choice. You get to choose what you like, what you dislike. Whether you allow somebody to make that choice for you, you're still choosing to allow somebody to make that choice for you. So you have this amazing center of accountability if you want it to take complete control of your life and choose the experience that you want to have. Because that's I would say generally like that's what I do. I choose experience I want to have and I get to choose the perspective that I hold on that. And that gives you that sense of control that a lot of us search for in things outside of ourselves. I just look for it where I'm at. So I encourage you to choose who you to create exactly what you want this to be. Just give that a try.
Yeah, and I know what worked for me in that process. It was understanding that I did have that choice and that I could choose like who I wanted to become and the things that I wanted to accomplish. But just like it helped me to do it from a perspective of not thinking about anyone else. Like
Yeah.
generally, I would think about who I, wanted to be through the lens of what I thought my parents, wanted me to be, or what I thought, my significant other might have wanted me to be. And that is where we then have that like dissonance between who we really are and then who we're trying to be. And then there's even more resistance in our lives. There's even more stress. There's even more anxiety because we're not truly living in a way that serves us best because we didn't choose what was going to serve us best, right, in the first place. So, yeah, what I definitely wholeheartedly stand behind what Nick just said. Take some time to discover what that looks like for you. I know I primarily use journaling. I always keep books around. I just kind of I think about what I want my life to look like, and I write it down. I just write it down. I do so not thinking about anybody else. It's just me. Of course, I have people in my life that I love, so I do take into account them as well and how my life influences their lives too. But yeah, we all have an opportunity to create that side of our lives, so we might as well start now. Right now is a better time than ever.
Agreed.
All right, let's see. Checking the stream, seeing how we're doing, seeing if anyone's leaving any comments. No, we're good. Cool.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, and if you do tune in, feel free. Leave comments, any questions. That's what this platform is here for. We wanted to be live so that we can answer questions. So if you ever hear anything that sparks something in you, just let us know. All right. All right. For me, let's see. Over the month of January, it was an interesting month. Today, I'm actually in the red, which has been
Oh,
the first time I've been in the red all year. So all month, let's just say. Let me not go too far there, which has been interesting because I hadn't really been thinking about it because my focus for this month was aligning my habits with what we've been talking about on the Balance Period podcast and through all of our other platforms. Right, been talking about creating the first pillar of our sustainable self-care system, which is our evening routine. So going through the process of identifying the current ways that we're spending our time leading up to bed, swapping out the habits that we recognize no longer serve a useful purpose in us getting higher quality sleep, and then implanting those healthy sleep hygiene habits that actually contribute to us getting higher quality sleep on a nightly basis. And so I've been doing that, and I've seen fantastic results. My tracking system is Whoop. Shout out to Whoop. I've used it for a little, going on 2 years now. And I use their platform, their service as an opportunity to expand my awareness of my quality of life based on the habits that I practice and how those influence my quality of sleep. And so that recovery score, like I said, I'm at like a 29 today, so I'm in the red. But that recovery score for me is a reflection of a combination of both the habits I'm practicing and my body's ability to heal and recover as I sleep. So, I mean, I'm okay with being in the red. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to sit up here and have this conversation or get a workout in or do the other things I do during the day. But for me, I use it as an indicator to say, okay, today's not going to be a day that I go into the gym and max out. Like it wouldn't make sense because my body just isn't in a place to where it's like at a high level can adapt to strain, which is okay. We're not supposed to be there every day. So I'm definitely grateful for that platform, and I'll continue to use that going into next month. But I would say one of the things that I learned was just like the not even learn, but from my experience was just seeing and experiencing the value of consistency, which we talk about it all the time. But my biggest thing in my evening routine wasn't necessarily a certain habit in particular, besides getting consistent sleep. So going to bed and waking up at the same times or around the same times every day, Monday to Monday, every day doing that. And that's what I committed myself to, and that's what I did over the last month. I think there's probably like maybe a 15-minute time difference between when I will go to bed and when I will wake up every day for this month. And I wanted to do it for me and to see how it affected my body and my body's ability to recover, but B, to show you, right? To show everyone that it can be done. Yes, my life is different than most people, right? I don't have any kids. There's certain responsibilities that I know can influence your ability to get this consistent sleep. But for me, I'm like, well, if I can do it every day, then, why can't someone else try to prioritize it for 5 days out of the week, right? We all can impact and influence what time we go to bed and what time we wake up. So because that's something that is in our control to a certain degree, might as well begin to take accountability for it. Because that, for me, I found both in research, going through other research studies and in my own body experiencing it, consistent sleep is one of the major keys of actually getting higher quality sleep over time. So I'm glad that I took that on and tried it and worked well. I'm just gonna continue to do it. I don't see a need to not. Actually, I was thinking about trying to do like some lucid dreaming, which I think the process I read was like wake up after 5 hours. So after you go to bed, wake up after 5 hours, stay up for 30 minutes, and then go back to sleep. So I might try that. I don't know if I'll do that next month or the month after, but now that I have this consistent rhythm, I'm like, well, how can I, play with it now? How can I make some adjustments and try some different things within this, level of consistency that I currently have to get different experiences from my sleep and see how I feel. So we'll
No, yeah.
see. We'll see what that looks like moving forward as it pertains to my sleep.
So first, I would say try Wim Hof breathing when you go to bed. I would say try that instead of listening to something. I know when I was working on lucid dreaming and stuff like that, I realized that if I get myself mentally into a state to where almost as if it's basically like your body's falling asleep, but your mind's still awake. Once you start to when you practice that through breathing, it makes it a whole lot easier to have that experience from what I've went through. And so I would just recommend finding a breathing practice to do that and just focus on sitting as still as possible. And that'll kind of induce that, oh, well, it's my body sleep, but you're still very active in the brain of with everything that's going on. And you sleep with a sleep mask too, don't you?
Sleep mask and earplugs.
Yeah, so then that's a whole you're gonna be completely engulfed into whatever world you got going on inside your head. So that sounds like fun. I was gonna say because I don't know if y'all knew this or not, but I believe it. You did it every single day last year, right? For Whoop kept track of everything from sleep to all that. You stayed on track for
Yeah.
365. How did you let everybody know like what's your why to keep track of that? Because I'm sure many of us have used my fitness pal. Back when I was bodybuilding, I used all kinds of apps for stuff. I had Whoop for a little bit, but for me, for a lot of people, we stop after a while. Of course, I have my own reasons, but I want to know like if you could share with everybody what's your why to stay consistent even after a whole year to keep going now with something like that.
Yeah, mine is influenced by like longer term vision. Like my one of the things that I have decided as a part of my purpose is to contribute to generational wellness in my family, right? So for the rest of my lineage, anyone connected to my bloodline, right? Any kids that I have, they're going to get the highest quality genes possible because I know I get an opportunity to influence those genes based on what I believe about myself and the habits that I choose to practice. So because that's the case, I understand that by collecting all of this data that I can go back to and look at, this data that I find valuable in its practicality of my ability to make adjustments to my daily routines based on what I'm experiencing internally, then like why not continue to get this information? Why not continue to use this information to make small adjustments to how I choose to spend my time and how I choose to live my life over time, right? So that I can put my body and my mind in the best position to be that best example for my child genetically, right? That I can be. And so I've learned about like I've taken some time to learn about like telomeres, about some of the other aspects of what goes on in our bodies that we have an opportunity to pass down to, generations of our families to come. And I'm like, how can I continue to align my lifestyle with me maintaining optimal health? Like that's my mindset is I want to be at the best or most favorable level of wellness and health that I can be at. And I know for me, in order to do that, I can only manage what I measure. So by using Whoop as that measurement tool, like for me, it wouldn't make sense not to continue to use it, because I have found it to be so valuable up until this point. I've thought about using other things too, like they have the Aura Ring, different ways
Yeah,
to
I saw
track.
that. Hmm.
But for me, I'm like, this works for me. Like, it works, and I'm okay with continuing to use it up until there's something else. There's actually something that I am in the process of like adding to my routine of tracking, and it's to focus more on my metabolic health and focusing on my metabolic health through tracking my blood glucose levels. So at some point, right, I don't know when, because I have to get accepted into like a program to do it with this company that's developing this like software around it. They might have the hardware by now, but it's literally, I have a glucose monitor that I have on the back of my arm, and it'll literally keep track of my glucose all day, every day, and it will let me know based on the foods that I eat. Like, it'll show me how the foods that I eat are impacting my life metabolically.
I'm
Because
interested
we
in that.
normally go through life, we we tend to eat a lot of carbs. We're a carb heavy society, so we kind of shoot our glycemic index up. Like, we have these peaks and valleys as it pertains to what's going on metabolically because of what we eat. So for me, can look at my sleep data and see that I'm doing something that's not beneficial to my well-being, and because I see it, I'm now more inclined to make adjustments. Well, why wouldn't that be the same for my diet? If I'm looking at what the foods that I'm eating and noticing these peaks and valleys, and then I try something different, and I notice that by having a more balanced state of my metabolic health, I feel different, I'm able to function different, then wouldn't that be beneficial for me too? So I'm going deeper and deeper, learning more and more about how I can increase my energy levels, how I can make adjustments to how I'm currently spending my time and energy, so that I can, feel good and function at my best, and be the example of what it is that we talk about on this platform all the time. So I'll definitely be sure to let you all know when that is the case, and when I start that. But I'm excited for what's to come in that regard too.
No doubt. Like to hear more about it.
Yeah. So, all right, going into next month, what are some of the things that you're looking to do going into this next month, now that you have had the experiences that you have had, in January?
It'll just be adjusting a new routine. That's pretty much it. Like as we talk about in everything that we do, like our life is just a sum of the habits that we practice. And so I'll just be changing up a few habits. I know one of them would be like what I do with my morning time or the time that I get up. Normally like take a nap midday, so I'm gonna kind of exclude the nap out, replace the nap time with working out time, and then I'll just shave off a little bit of the time that I would stay up late and go to bed a little bit earlier. So that'll be the first adjustment. As I make that adjustment and notice the changes, then I'll begin to make others. That's how I like to do it. I don't like to just try to change everything because then I'll be in resistance to it. So what I do is I incrementally change things, and then I kind of gauge where I'm at, and then I'll change something else. If I
Mm,
don't like something, I can always revert something back. But I always make small changes as I go because I don't try to put myself in the shop. Where am I in a rush to get to? Like in the past, it's always like, well, I'm gonna write all my whole new routine down in a notebook and I'm gonna follow it like this, and this. Yeah, that works for like 6 hours, but after you're not gonna do it. So instead, I
right.
just take my time, add this change in here. I'm gonna go with this change, see how this goes. Who knows what it'll be like next? Because once I start working out, my eating will change. Everything about how I live my life right now will change. So once I see how it goes with that first one, then I'll know whatever it is I'm gonna do next.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, no, focusing on the incremental changes, I think, that's the key to behavior change. Well, the beginning of behaviors change starts with self-acceptance. So anyone listening, know that you got to do that first in order to put yourself in the best position to make adjustments to how you spend your time and energy to actually incrementally improve your quality of life. But starting small, which is what we talked about to enter this new year, is so huge, because like you said, like, it feels good, right, to lay out your entire day. I'm gonna do this right when I wake up, and then the next hour, the next hour, the next hour, the next hour, and I'm gonna get all this, and it feel good. You write it down, you're like, yeah, and then the first day you do it, after a couple hours, you like, I just want to do what I have
Yep.
been doing for the last year. Like, I don't really want to do it.
Don't forget, you
So
already made the you already made a post and everything about it. You done told the
yeah,
whole world about your new schedule.
yeah. So yeah, completely understandable. Yeah, so start small. I know, similar to what we have been doing on the show, right? Um, we started with our evening routine, but what we started with was just keeping track of how you spent the last hour of your day. That's it. You keep track of 1 hour of your day? Like that is where you can start. So if there are adjustments that you're looking to make, like with Nick in his morning routine, just keep track of 1 hour of how spend an hour in your morning. If you want to incorporate some more exercise, keep track of 1 hour of like free time that you get to have during the day. Same thing with your evening routine. Start small and then incrementally make adjustments so that you can align your habits and your mindset, over time with what it is you actually want to see change in your life.
And I'm gonna give y'all a life hack. It might not work for everybody, but feel free to try it. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. Just
We're
make it
live.
something
How you
that
gonna say
you're.
don't tell nobody?
No, I'm
Oh, you
telling them
mean
when they make the changes to what they
I
want to
see.
do. When you decide to change your schedule, don't tell nobody. Don't go around doing that. Just change it and just see what your experience is like. Because remember, when it comes down to other people, they can only see you where they've known you. So you can change the moment you walk away from somebody. Does not mean they're aware of that. A lot of times we base how we feel about ourselves off the response we get from other people. Something to be mindful of is it's a lot more beneficial to keep it to yourself, then do it. Let other people see your progress.
That is facts. Like I was listening to um what was it? Smile at Fear, Awakening True Heart of Bravery. I've talked about it on the
Mm-hmm.
show before, but he talked about it in there a little bit. He was like, if you are saying that you're gonna stop smoking, right? You don't have to tell people that you're gonna stop smoking. Just stop smoking. Like just stop doing it. Like you don't have to go through the process. Like nobody cares really. Like it's
Really,
more
that
important
that's
for
the
your
truth.
wellness. But yeah, nobody cares. They
No,
don't.
that is the hard truth that people nobody really cares about what you do. And more than not, someone reacting to what you're doing is just them feeling better about themselves for something else that they're probably not doing within their own life. Like we keep having these think that people are living this perfect life. Nah, everybody's going through pretty much the exact same thing from a different perspective. So it's
Right.
yes, nobody cares. We don't.
No, we don't. So just take care of yourself, right? For you. Take care of yourself for you.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see. Going into this next month. So I started to post a little bit. I'm about to bring this in front of the camera. Using my Oculus a little bit more. I'm in there in one of the metaverses Horizon worlds. I'm creating a world, so I'm looking forward to continuing to build that out. And then to have, let you all know how you can access it, how you can visit it. But that's been a lot of fun. So continuing to incorporate using virtual reality and the metaverse into my sustainable self-care system. Currently, so over this last month, I would maybe like a couple times a week do workouts in there. You'll definitely see more content of that come out to where you can kind of see what it is I'm actually doing in there. But I'll work out in there. I sit in front of the mirror and talk to myself. I dance in there. I just be kind of getting it a little bit, just spending time with myself, which has been it's been pretty fun. So I'm looking forward to continuing to explore that world, continuing to do what I enjoy, right? That's something that brings me joy and happiness to play around in there. And that is an aspect of self-care, right? Because when you're spending time doing something that has your, vibration aligned with joy and aligned with happiness, like that is self-care, right? I'm caring for myself in those moments because I'm spending my energy doing something that is aligning my vibrations with what it is I actually want to see more of in life. So it's definitely something that, find what you enjoy and just prioritize time to do it on a daily basis. That in and of itself is self-care. Yeah, I'll continue to do that. I also started to use MyFitnessPal again. And so I'm using MyFitnessPal to track what I'm consuming, food wise, food and drink wise. And that is, I think, it's going to help me once I am at a position to get that glucose monitor and begin to monitor my metabolic health, like understanding how I'm currently eating just based on my nutritional levels for the day, like how much fiber am I getting each day, how much protein am I getting, like even over the last couple of weeks, right? That's the biggest thing I noticed. I'm like, I'm not eating enough protein. I'm just not, like, I'm not eating enough meat, nor am I like drinking enough protein shake. Like I'm just not getting enough on a daily basis. So now based on that information, I'm currently able to make small adjustments. But when I'm able to get it at a cellular level, once I have, that glucose monitor in, then I'll be able to make even more adjustments. But we can already begin to make these small changes to our current consumption habits if we just pay closer attention to what those habits are. And so I'm continuing to do that throughout this month just to learn more about my consumption habits as it pertains to the food that I eat and keep track of my energy levels too, because I noticed that like for me, I don't eat until like probably between 11 and 1 every day. That's generally when I eat my
Mm,
first meal, right? And after I eat my first meal, I don't know if I eat too much or if I eat too much carbs, whatever it is, I'm tired.
yeah.
And for me, I'm like, I don't feel like it's necessary to be tired after you eat. Like, I feel like we can eat and that can energize us, right? Or at least it should.
I feel
I'm
like
not
it's supposed
100%
to do
sure.
that.
Yeah, like I don't think I'm supposed to eat and then be like, I need to take a nap right now. I'm just real slumped. So that's something that I am looking to make adjustments in my diet for, to say, okay, after I eat that first meal of the day, like why is this happening and what adjustments can I make in order to feel more energized instead of feel like I need to like lay down after I eat. So
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's just something that I'm focused on. I got another Everly Well test. I haven't done it yet because I haven't picked it up yet, but it is like the men's health test. So
Mm.
it'll cover like my testosterone and some of the other hormones that are supposed to help me feel more energized, help me build muscle, do the things that I want to do more of. So doing tests like that, that'll give me insight on these different levels that are going on inside of me, and then I can use that also to make adjustments to the foods that I'm eating, the supplements that I take. So that's what I'm focusing on, right? Continuing to expand my awareness of what's going on in here so that I can be more intentional about how I spend my time and energy out here. All right. So
Are you fasting? Are you fasting like or keeping track of fasting? I can tell you're kind of intermittent fasting with your first meal being like between 11 and 1. But one thing that I noticed, and this is something that I heard on a podcast they talked about before. They said, "You ever think about that? What you brought up about how when you eat you get tired, but it's supposed to be when you eat you get energized." So did you ever think that maybe you can fast longer? One thing I noticed for me, especially with breathing and stuff, is I eat a lot less, and so I have to make sure I eat a lot more high quality because I eat less. But what I noticed is I find myself being less hungry when I'm, focused on my breathing, doing all these things, and my energy is perfectly fine. And so I started to get to a place where now I'll eat more so out of necessity. So like I eat if I know like I haven't ate nothing in 21, I can say 21, say like 15 hours, I should probably put some in my body right now. I feel a little tired. But if I don't feel tired and I do feel perfectly fine, I'm cool with just like keeping water. I might do a smoothie, but if I don't need anything, I'm good. I won't have anything.
yeah.
So I don't know if that's something that you kind of pay attention to too, or if you just like, you know what, nah, I know I need to eat around this much, and that's what I'm following.
For me, and using my fitness pal, I keep track of. So I do on like a monthly basis. I hop on a scale that I have that has these different metrics, and you have one too. But I
Yeah,
kind of share, like your subcutaneous fat, your visceral fat, just some of the things that you can get through bioelectrical impedance, which is like the small, vibrations that they send through, electrical charges they send through, and get this feedback. So from that, I use that information to say, hey, I'm currently at this weight. I'm currently at, these stages. I type that into my fitness pal and say, well, what are like my calorie needs in order
mm,
to, let's say, gain a couple pounds of muscle? And like what are these markers that I need to hit nutritionally in order to make those adjustments? So that's how I go about keeping track of like what I need on a daily basis. And what I notice is I tend to eat a lot less calories than what they recommend me eat, um, and then my protein is a lot less. My
mm,
sodium tends to be a lot more, which learning more about sodium, understanding like it's very useful, and that some of the recommendations on that are a bit skewed
yeah,
to certain studies that were done. That actually like the current recommendations might be less than what our bodies actually needs. Like they're not less as it pertains to people that like need to ingest less sodium, because there are certain demographics like African Americans, we tend to have a higher predisposition to have like high blood pressure, and eating certain amounts of sodium for people that have that is detrimental, right? It's putting you,
yeah,
at a worse off position to potentially get, heart disease over time. So but for the general, like for a healthy individual, the recommendations are too low, and it can be detrimental to their health because they're too low. So you kind of have to you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself.
yeah.
And that is going
Makes
to be
sense.
what will help you determine what it is you actually need to set these levels at in your life. I would highly recommend getting a registered dietitian. I haven't done that yet, but that's on my to do list. I'm looking for a therapist and I'm looking for a registered dietitian. So that's also what I am going to be doing over this next month, is getting both of those so that I have people in my corner that literally, their job is to focus in on the data that I've been collecting and help me continue to make adjustments to it based on their expertise. I'm not a registered dietitian. I don't, know all these things. Do I know myself? Yeah, I know myself pretty well. So I can take some, educated advice from people that spend their lives doing this work and use that as, as a framework for ways that I can improve my quality of life over time. So,
No dope.
yeah. Well, I know that's all I got. I don't really want to keep us here any longer than what we need to be. I know I'm excited to have this platform now to be able to hop on here, have these open conversations about what we're currently doing. As the month progresses, I know last week I talked about an article. Nick and I will be bringing in articles of different things that we read, on our own time that spark conversations, in this community. If there's ever anything that you come across that you want us to talk about, just send it to our social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're on all of them. So just shoot us a DM of anything that you want us to talk a little bit about on this platform. And we're looking forward to continuing to add value and to share our stories and to help continue to encourage and empower you to know that regardless of where you are, regardless of what you experienced up until this point, depending on what you believe about yourself and the habits you choose to practice, you have an opportunity to incrementally improve your quality of life, become the person that you want to be, and per what it is that we do and why we do it, you can be the best example possible for our next generation of what it means to live a happy, healthy, wholehearted life. Nick, is there anything that you want to leave the live with today?
Yeah, if you are not the best version of yourself for yourself, you can't be anything for anybody else. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm gonna end it off like normal. As you know, you can't fill anyone else's cup if your cup is empty. Similar to what Nick said about being the best version of yourself. So be sure to prioritize time for self care. It is so simple and you can do so in a sustainable way. So continue to stay tapped into balance, period, right? Continue to learn, continue to grow, and develop your sustainable self care system. That's what's going to help you truly live a life that is you being the best version of you. Lastly, you don't have to be perfect in order to be great. So be sure that you're patient with yourself and that you're kind to yourself as you travel along this journey of incrementally improving your quality of life. All that you have to do in order to be the change that you want to see in the world is get started and keep going. And you being here watching this right now is you getting started. So now all you have to do is just take what you're learning here and implement it into your routine and continue to develop into the best version of yourself. So thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you all next week. And we'll come back and have another Mindful Monday discussion. Peace.